Okay, guys, so if you like this video, be sure to give an upvote, subscribe, and comment for the sake of the algorithm growing the channel. I appreciate it big time. Couldn't do it without you guys. This has been, in the last week, the first time in like 2.5 years that my channel's actually grown. And obviously part of that is because I'm putting more work into it. And like you can see here, 1080 HD camera, just got the new camera in, so it looks way better than before. So I can use this now for my reaction videos and podcasts. It's gonna make everything way better. And I'm going to keep the podcast coming. Like I said, we got the John Hack podcast we just finished. I'm going to be putting clips up of that and the full podcast later this week. We've got the Larry Wheels podcast coming up on May 4th. And then I'll get some other guys after that. I'm trying for George Lehman. I'll try for Clarence Kennedy. I'll try for anyone. Not saying I can get everyone, but I'll try. I have some connections with some people, others not as good at connections, but I'm going to do my best. So let me know if you like the channel upgrades and all that. Like I said, I couldn't do it without you guys. I seriously couldn't. Like, this is the first time in 2.5 years my channel has actually grown. And I think in the next week, I might be able to hit 82,000 subscribers, which would be close to a PR for me. The highest I ever got was like 82,500. So the channel's growing. I'm going to keep pumping the videos out. I appreciate you all. You're really helping me out. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to react here today to Alpha Destiny's video about overhead press specialization equaling serious gains. But I first want to preface the video by saying you should all be overhead pressing. Overhead presses are my number one bench assistance movement. So I do not personally like strictly specializing in overhead pressing because I feel like your bench is going to fall off then. There have been time periods where I specialized in overhead press and I got it to 275 strict press and 315 push press, but I wasn't benching. And then when I went back to benching, despite my overhead press being so much stronger, my bench was like literally didn't move at all. And I've had the same thing happen with incline bench. There was a time when I incline bench 420 and my flat bench literally didn't budge at all because I was specializing in incline benching. So I do not agree with specialization. And this is a 1-year-old video, so this might not be his views now. And I could also have Alpha Destiny on the podcast. But I think as an assistance movement, overhead press, overhead strict press is the number one bench assistance movement for increasing your bench. Because what it's going to do, especially for you guys who bench outside of the rings. So if you're anybody who benches outside of the rings, whether it's ring finger, middle finger, or even index finger, you're going to get a lot out of overhead press. Overhead press is going to make you feel more stable when you unrack the bar. And it's also going to give you a lot more power off the chest. So I've become big into overhead press. I do it almost after every single bench day. And the other thing you're going to find out, there's a direct correlation. If your overhead press is going up, your bench is almost always going to go up so long as you're still training both of them. If you train one solely by itself, it's not going to increase the other. But if you train them in conjunction with one another, where you put overhead press in that primary assistance movement spot after bench, I can almost guarantee as your overhead press goes up, so will your bench. But let's see what Alpha Destiny had to say. Let me know if you guys want him on the podcast too, because I'll definitely reach out. I think he'd be down.
Press specialization will change your life. And in this video, I'll break down all of the benefits, starting with the size and strength. Do you realize this is much more than a shoulder builder? It's actually an old school, time-tested.
He's going to say traps. He's going to say traps. Because anytime that motion at the top, that shrugging motion, you're hitting your traps. I would bet. That's why a log press especially will destroy your traps. Let's hear what he has to say.
Competition exercise. There's some serious merit to this lift. And when you actually get strong at it, it'll contribute to your shoulders, triceps, upper back, and traps. And the crazy thing about it is that you don't have to go as heavy as the bench press. You can rep over 200 pounds on the OHP.
Okay, let's make note. I know, obviously, Alpha Destiny's natty. This is really good lighting. Like, if he was in bright lighting, he would get completely washed out. So he's not really, this is the kind of deceptive thing when you're doing natty or nots. Like, he looks not natty here, but we all know he's natty. But this is like super good lighting. So you got to take that into account.
Man, you can have a great physique. And guess what? When you go to any other press, you're automatically going to be strong. Maybe not the most specific, but you'll be up there. I would say you could easily have an advanced bench or late intermediate if you did nothing but overhead press. But I'm going to say a lot of you can pull off the advanced.
I would argue that, like I said this in the opening of the video, just overhead pressing without benching will not give you a carryover. Same with incline bench. It will not. You can try it out. Try doing nothing but overhead press for 8 weeks and then try maxing your bench and see if it's gone up at all. My guess is no. Same with incline. This is the one caveat I don't agree with here as far as specializing in it is not the answer, but it's an excellent assistance movement.
Stats because it is a brutal exercise that doesn't give you the best leverages. On your overhead press, can you arch your back like a banana? Can you rely on your ribcage structure to reduce range of motion? The worst thing you can do is lean back or bend your legs. But if we're talking about the strict press, which is the correct way of doing the OHP for maximum gains, bro, we're talking strength like you wouldn't even fucking believe it. And the best thing about it is that it's completely safe.
Well, there's one. The only thing I'd say about overhead press is you can arch your low back to an extent where you can injure your low back potentially. This is why I would do it belted. So I do think standing overhead press is way better than seated, but I would always do it belted to give yourself that lumbar support. Because the big mistake people make on overhead presses is they drive it straight out in front like this. They're just going straight out in front. You want to literally go back and pop your head through. So instead of going looking up and going straight in front, you're not going to get as much carryover with that to your one rep max. You want to go back, head through. So literally, you're pressing behind your head and pushing your head through. That's the proper way to overhead press, which is what he's doing here. He's pushing his head through and driving back.
For the shoulders, but that could be further from the truth. Read the book Starting Strength, which is honestly a must read for anyone who's serious about strength training, and you'll understand.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that either because things that Ripito says as far as like head positioning on squat and deadlift, I don't agree with. Some of the form things on squat and deadlift that Ripito goes by, I'm not huge on. But starting strength obviously has a lot that you could learn from it, especially if you're starting out. I'm not discrediting all of it. It's just certain technique tweaks I don't agree with as far as what he says.
Understand that the scapula rotates as you press, and when you're at the locked out position, there's no shoulder impingement. See, it's an issue when guys do this half repping bullshit on the shoulder press, right? They grab these super heavy dumbbells, they need a spotter to help lift it, right? Because they're weak from the bottom, and then they're just doing half reps. Yeah, flaring your elbows at the absolute max, doing these fucking half reps, that's going to get you hurt eventually. Probably. I would say there's a high chance. But if we're talking about a properly...
See, I agree with him there because those half reps, like I was talking about on overhead press where you're kind of out in front, it's just like not locking your bench out fully. Like if you're benching like this, you're not getting the full benefit as opposed to locking out and holding locked out at the top. So I don't agree. I agree with that as well. Like you have to fully extend the arms, keep them locked out at the top and pause for a second. You're going to get way more benefit, way more carryover to your one rep max.
The executed overhead press, full range of motion, locking out your reps, doing it right, staying tight in the upper back, all that. You're not going to get hurt. It's actually the opposite. In fact, there are people who had shoulder injuries or who started getting overuse problems from benching. They switched to overhead press. The pain not only goes away, but they get much stronger in the process. And when they go back to bench, they did great. Many people will alternate between bench and overhead. They'll do a few months full on vertical, a few months full on horizontal. Or they'll do a hybrid of the two for maximum injury prevention because it does offer that. At the same time, you should recognize that overhead press does not require safety pins for the most part. You just take it out of the squat rack, or any rack for that matter, or hey, just do it off the floor. You could clean it to your shoulders, that works too.
I would not recommend cleaning it to your shoulders because you're going to limit yourself as far as how much you can lift by how much you can clean, and the clean's going to take a lot out of you. So I would do it from, from the hooks if possible. But there's really not a lot that can go wrong. Like if you can't get the rep, you're just going to lower it right back to the front rack position and walk it in. So as far as that, it's super safe. But that my one like disagreement with him in this whole video is that you can just overhead press and your bench will get stronger. I'm sure there are examples. I'm not saying like no one's going to comment and be like, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be examples of people who comment are even going to say their bench went up a little bit. For the most part, you have to do them together, and that'll really maximize your gains.
And you do it. You don't need to have a great power rack. You don't need to have a spotter. It's a safe exercise done by itself. And if you do happen to fail the rep towards the lockout or whatever, it just goes back down to your chest, and you're good. I suppose the only dangerous part would be if using a suicide grip and you hit the lockout and the bar drops because maybe it rolls out of your hand and it lands on you. That could be a bit of a problem. Or doing some behind neck press type stuff, yeah, might be problematic with all the flaring and the impingement. But the classic overhead press, done with proper form, I would argue it's safer, because you don't need safety pins or any of that sort. And if you did want to,
just because the computer's starting it, let's see what else he has to say.
the number itself, the absolute number, is not that high. Okay, so if you can do 200 or more, that's pretty fucking strong on OHP.
I agree. 200, a 200 should be like the baseline as far as being really strong on overhead press for a natural lifter. Obviously, enhanced lifters are going to be like 200 pounds, that's nothing. But for a natural lifter, a 200-pound plus overhead press is really, really good.
Your body weight or more, that's pretty strong. So
Body weight overhead strict, body weight strict press is ridiculous. Like that's even crazier. So 100%.
it's not the same. Like doing 135 for 10 reps is pretty good. And if you can do it for more than 10, let's say you want to bench 350, what do you have to do? Empty bar, 135, maybe 185, 225, then 2.5, then 3, then look.
For a 350 bench, I would say your overhead press should be around 200 pounds strict. That would equate out to about a 350 bench, in my opinion.
A little bit close to 350, a little jump, maybe 335. That takes a while, right? And then you got your sets with this heavier weight. Like,
I mean, I think the video is all together highlighting the benefits of overhead pressing, which I completely agree with. So we're on the same page here. I've really gotten into overhead press lately. It has tremendous benefits, and I think everybody should be doing it. If you like this video, give it a upvote, subscribe, comment for the algorithm. Appreciate you guys.